Hi Laura, how are you doing?
Hi Josh, hi Lina, I'm good, doing great, thanks.
So nice to have you with us. I'm
So,
gonna start.
I think Josh,
y- Go ahead.
Josh, you're gonna kick off with a little intro. That's what I was gonna say.
Yes, today we are in conversation with Laura Lesueur. Laura has a strong, very strong entrepreneurial spirit, and she's been involved in several successful projects. She runs a podcast called Legend Ladies. In this podcast, she invites women on her platform and they talk about their professional life and how they have been thriving so far. Legend Ladies is a first podcast sur l'ambition féminine or female ambition, at least in French, and it is listed as the top 10 Apple podcasts. That's a big deal. And this is not even her main job. She cares about eating local and healthy, and she's co-founded an organization around this idea, which is not just a website. It's a strong presence in countries like England, the Netherlands, Germany, Switzerland, and France, just to name a few countries. I'm excited to ask her about her journey, how she prepared her mind to venture to this entrepreneurship side of things, her secret to financial success in this endeavor, and what she wishes she knew before starting this journey. Thank you so much for taking this time with us, Laura.
Thanks for having me.
It's really important how we are spoken to when we are a child. From maybe from it's our parent or it's from our teacher, something like this. But it's really important when you're told that you're not worth it, you won't go anywhere out of the city, or to hear stuff like you can do whatever you want to do. You end up believing them, right?
Absolutely.
So this was strong for you with your parents, you say?
Yeah, with my dad specifically, absolutely. The sense of, yeah, fully commitment in whatever you choose to do, whatever it is, but that to be fully committed. Yeah.
Yeah, and your teachers, did they also play this role of in unlimited life where you can be whatever you want to be? Or
Honestly, some of them not at all. I think there is much to say about the educational system, especially in France. I was in a very good level school in Paris, but honestly, most teachers had a personality that was not encouraging people to, yeah, to open, their minds. No, no, they were not like empowering teacher, except some of them, of course. So I would say no. It's mostly my family environment, yeah. And after, of course, my personality, I guess there is a mix of the two of them.
yeah, and so you said you went to a pretty good school in Paris. After that, did you travel around a bit for school, for studies, for early internships? What was that like for you?
Yeah, I went after that in a law bachelor. Then I went to edX, so to do an MBA. And I spent during my time at edX 6 months in New York and 1 year in Brazil, in Sao Paulo, which was great experience for both of them because the culture were so different. Yeah, I made magical trips also around there. So after that, I came back in France and start working.
I want to spend a good fat period of this podcast talking to you about the mindset behind entrepreneurship. But before I jump into that question, now that you're ahead in this journey, what do you wish you knew before you started this professional slash entrepreneurship journey? If we went back to the time when you're just getting out of your school in Paris, what would you tell yourself
Mm.
or advice?
Well, I think about three main things. There are a lot, of course, but maybe three main things. The first one is that to change your mindset and your beliefs around failure. Like if you begin to think, because we are especially not very good at it in France, but if you think that failure, what we call failure, is not a result, is a step, like if we think that failure is a step, then if you don't fail, it means that you don't try enough, like people who never fail. It's not that they are perfect, it's just that they don't try enough. And I would say that I would like to know as early as possible that you need to fail fast, to fail cheap if possible, and to fail often, because it's obviously some learnings that you can use after, and that it can empower you to do many things after. So yeah, the first thing would be failure. Don't see it as a result, just see it as a step toward your future success. And
I love how I love how you say that. I mean, so everyone is surely going to fail, right?
yeah, Yeah,
That's very heavy. So if you're not failing, that doesn't make you poor. I love the way you said that.
yeah, and I would say that before being an entrepreneur, Josh, that I was in the tech industry. I was a sales director, and I remember I was saying to my teams, like, if you don't make any mistakes during a year, there is a big problem, because it means two things: or that you are hiding your mistakes, which is a lack of transparency, which is not healthy for a company, or that you are not trying anything new, or that you are not trying enough. So yeah, I mean, failure, of course, you need to learn from it, but it's a step, it's not a result, and you need to fail often.
That's amazing.
Well, was there a time when you had a big time failure? Can you remember one situation?
Yeah, I actually thank you for the question, Lina, because it's my second point about what I wish I would knew before. One failure is that I didn't negotiate my entry salary when I came in the tech industry. The reason,
Okay.
the reason why, yeah, the reason why was that the salary that they proposed to me was very high compared to what I had before, and the process selection of the recruitment was really strong, and I was hoping, step after step, that I keep being selected. And at the end, I was really happy with what I got. But then 6 months after, I discovered that the male colleague that entered at the very same time than I did, we had the same targets, and I was overachieving the targets. He was just like 100% of the target, and I was like 120%. I discovered that he was paid 10K more than I did. And we had the same background, the same competencies. And as I said, I was overachieving the objectives. So I've seen it at the moment as a failure, because I told to myself, I'm not going to blame the company, even if there are, of course, some things that we can do better in the transparency of the salaries. But I blame myself, saying like, how come that even me, for a sales position, I didn't negotiate my entry salary? Like, it's so weird when you think about it.
May
So
I ask you if your salary was around, when we get out of edX, they gave us like this average, right? Was it around the average, or was it a scraping on the bottom of the average?
no, it was higher of the average.
Okay.
It was a company that paid very well. That was also the reason why, when I saw the proposal, I was like, whoa, this is like over what I expected. So that's great. And I was like crossing my fingers to say, I hope I will be selected in the end, which was the case. But still, so the second learning, and I insist on that, is like, you always have to negotiate. And now that I'm an entrepreneur, I also see it with some of my, I shouldn't say that, but with some of my clients, with some of my partner, with some of my providers, like, guys, people don't negotiate. Like, maybe 8 times out of 10, there's a price and there is no discussion. Sometimes it's great for me, because I don't have to lower, my prices. But how come that people don't have this skill of negotiating the value?
That's huge. I'll tell you what I struggled with that before we jump into your third learning. My first job that I got in France, I was not even sure I'll get a job, and I came to a point when time was running out. I'll take a bank, a telecom giant, I'll take whatever comes my way, because the first thing was I have a debt, I need a job, and the second thing was I need a nice salary.
Yeah.
So I remember I even interviewed with 360 Learning, and we did not even get to the point of talking about the money. It was already, the topic was closed before that. So did you also struggle with something like that, where there's no jobs available, at least for you? It seems like that to me. It was not true, but it seemed like that to me. Did it seem like this for you, and is that a reason why you didn't negotiate? Or
I see exactly what you mean. It was not the same reason for me, but in the end, I think what's interesting is that, as you said earlier, we have some limited beliefs, that are conditioning the way we're gonna think, the way we're gonna act, and in the end, the result we're gonna have. So yeah, it's a question of mindset, actually, because as you said, you thought there was not job for you, but it was not true. And my limited belief was like, maybe if I try to negotiate, they're not gonna choose me, they're gonna choose something else, which is completely stupid if you think about it, because when a company wants to have a candidate, of course, they expect to negotiate a bit. So
And at the end of the day, negotiation not only comes down to the salary you negotiate, right, but also to what are the tasks and what value are you actually trying to create with one another. And I think this is like one very important learning I'm undergoing through the interview process right now, that both sides bring something to the table, and if you add it up, it should be, bigger than two. This is there was an HBR article on that recently saying, how do you grow this pie and not just put it together, but how do you actually grow the pie? And you can only do that by putting on the table what are your benefits, what are you bringing, what are your what's your will, what do you want to get out of this as a company, but also as a candidate. And if you have transparency on that, you can grow the pie beyond just 1 + 1 = 2, but it can actually be bigger than 2, right? And you have synergies. But in order for you to do this, and this is, I think, what is hard for me as a young professional, you have to know, what do you want, what do you bring, and what do you not want. And
Yeah,
I think,
I agree 100% with what you are saying, Lina. And in fact, negotiating is so empowering because it's about bringing your own value on the table. And is exactly what you said, like it's putting yourself in a partnership relationship with your future employer, not just like I'm working for this company. No, you're working with this company as a valuable member of it. So yeah, completely.
So, to kind of reiterate that, you did not have a lack of jobs, but just the lack of insight that it's possible to negotiate your salary before getting in.
Absolutely.
That's heavy. That's heavy. I don't think this was not what we were told at business school. Of course, we sharpened our hard skills, but actually sitting down and working on our CV, cover letter, profile, clarity, all this stuff, but not negotiation on salary.
Yeah. And this is, I mean, this is something that you need to prepare. Like, you cannot just like arrive and not having any idea of what you want. You need to have your bottom lines. It's a strategy, actually. It's really a strategy. And I think it's really empowering because even if you don't get exactly what you were expecting when you try to negotiate, at least every time you try to negotiate, you are empowering yourself and you are making progress, actually.
That's amazing. I'm curious. You already have dropped two big bombs, Laura. What's the third one?
Well, the third one is the fact that sometimes, and I had a hard time doing that because I'm very driven into action. But sometimes it's worth it to take time to see how things are going. What I mean by that is that we are today in a time where people switch very fast, they know that they can change jobs, they can change of the field of their activities, they can work from everywhere. But I think that it's important to remember that there is sometimes the worth of taking time to see how things are going, rather than always rushing and always wanting to jump from one opportunity to another, or to keep the things in a very short time, because we are kind of pressured today to have things immediately, to do things on the way. And I think it's important to remember that as the nature is showing us, honestly, I think the parallel is interesting. There's always 9 months or so to grow a baby. There is always like the seasons. We are maybe the first day of spring. It was yesterday, but the cycle of the nature is always the same. And we as human, we are trying to reduce that to make it always shorter, always faster. I think it's a good thing, for instance, that the meetings in companies are shorter because sometimes they are too heavy. But I think it's important, and I'm going to illustrate this last point very quickly. When I was at 360 Learning, few months after entering the company, I wanted to leave. I wanted to leave because I was like, it's not exactly what I expected in terms of culture, in terms of mindset. And honestly, I wanted to leave and to find another opportunity. But I took time, few months, to wait and to still working and see how things were evolving. And actually, they evolved in an interesting way for me. And I decided to stay about 4.5 years. So yeah, the third point would say sometimes taking time is worth it.
Do you feel when you speak to your colleagues or maybe people that you studied with that when you hear about their journey, it seems like let me talk personally. I feel like I'm missing out and I'm not being as aggressive. And this is probably where it comes from, that desire for making an impact. In that, if I don't push aggressively and change it now, then I would have wasted 2 years. How would you kind of equate the two? Take time to see how things are going before concluding that this is not for you, versus if I spend a good amount of time on this, maybe I've spent 3 years and I could have switched back then into something that's more me. Do you see what I'm saying?
Yeah, I see what you say. I think the line is not always easy. I think it's important in this reflection to put yourself some really clear mental deadlines. To say, okay, I will give it time, but not undefined time. I will give it maybe, okay, I'm in January, we will wait to see how it goes in July. And in July, I will have to ask myself the real question. And even more, I will have to answer it for myself in a really honest way. So I think the fact of taking time is all in putting bottom lines.
And this is what you did as well in your job, when you felt like this is probably not for you. You gave yourself a period of time and
Yeah.
certain KPIs, yeah?
Absolutely. Yeah.
Wow. Okay. No, I definitely struggled with that myself too. I think I was discussing this with Lina when she was here with us this weekend, and we were talking about which would be the ideal role and industry for my character, because we know each other well now. We were just, going to and fro, asking her about her job, sharing about my job, and see. So yeah, the struggle is, after bagging a job, the struggle is real.
Yeah. Absolutely.
One thinks
I
about
think
this.
the question also coming with this is, to a certain degree, how much does an environment have to fit yourself, or how much can you impact the environment to fit yourself, right? So, and I guess the larger the corporation, the trickier it gets to really change big things. You can always have an impact on your, small community team surrounding you, but to really impact major things, it's going to be harder in large corporations. But then on the other side, if you manage to impact major things in large corporations, the lever will be even bigger, because, what they can achieve is even more impactful. So it's probably a balance out of both of these things.
Yeah, completely.
Laura, coming into this part where you jumped into the entrepreneurial side of things, because 360 Learning was not the most entrepreneurial, right? It was more a job. But you had a couple of side hustles, and I remember we had coffee together one evening with another friend, and we were just discussing about what we want in our personal lives, in our professional lives. Do you remember a point in time when that clarity came to you, that this is what I am about? It's about entrepreneurship. Did you have this?
Yeah, I think this is a really important question. Like, it's really key. I remember, and it was not a specific date or moment. It was a process, and a very specific one. Let me explain it. It was a process of introspection. I did it maybe like in my second year of being at 360 Learning. So it took maybe 2 years and a half to, to infusate, like to the fact that I assimilated. The process of introspection was about different things, but one main point was the ikigai. I don't know if you guys already heard about the ikigai process.
No.
No? Okay, it's a Japanese word and Japanese methodology to ask yourself, where is your core value? Not only the value that you put on the market, but it's your why. Why are you here? What do you want to achieve? What is your real value that you can bring to other people and that will satisfy yourself? So basically, the ikigai is 4 things, 4 circles that at one moment they join together, and the common thing is the ikigai. The first thing is, what do I love to do? Basically, like, there can be many things, but when you think about it, and is what I did, when you look at your childhood, what did you like to do during your childhood? For instance, I loved, the fact that in class, when you have to do a poem, or you have to claim something, in front of all the classroom, I was stressed like everyone, but I really enjoyed the show, the oral expression. So, like, what do you love to do? What are you good at? That are 2 different things. I love to sing, Joshua and Lina, but I'm terrible at singing. It's not the same thing. So first thing, what do you love to do? Second thing, what are you good at? And I remember that I did some theater when I was a child and then a young adult. And I love the oral expression. I love bringing conviction out of the table. I love with my dad when I was little having some discussion about specific society topics. So what are you good at? The third thing is how can you win money? On what can you win money? On what can you be paid for? And the fourth thing is, what do the world needs? Okay. So the ikigai is the common point of these four things. And when I did this introspection, I realized, and it took me for several weeks to do so, I realized that my common point was the oral expression. The fact to bring some beliefs, some convictions out of there by the fact of basically speaking. So that's why when I find this, I said to myself, okay, I want to be a motivational speaker. So that was the beginning.
My Laura, you know what? I had question 4 and question 5. I can read it out, but you answered question 4 and question 5 in question. It is so complete. But I haven't done this exercise. I do like tech, and I got into that job, and I enjoy what I do, but I haven't sat down to ask myself this ikigai kind of thing. Like, what am I good at? What do I like to do? And what will I get paid for? What does the world want out of this? That's huge.
Yeah, it's great. And there is a book, if you want, you guys, Lina, and just to put the link of the book, because there is a methodology. I bought the book at the time and I follow the different steps. And it's really an introspective way to do, and it's really interesting. So I think that was really, a shortcut for me when I did that, to know exactly where to go when I wanted to create my own company, to be an entrepreneur. I didn't ask myself like, oh, what idea could I put out there? I'm looking for the good market fit or the good pain to solve. I was just, like, what do I want to bring? And I began to create something about that based on this exercise I'm talking about.
When you say that, Laura, it sounds so easy and it sounds so logical. Because, I mean, yes, of course, you're successful with what you're doing right now. So one would assume that was just your destiny to go that way. And it worked out at the end of the day. But when you had this realization of what I'm doing right now might not be the thing I'm looking for the future, doesn't this also put you in some kind of uncomfortable spot? And taking the decision to go the risk and go your own way, I can imagine there's also some hurdles linked to that, right?
Yeah, absolutely. It's a very good point, Lina. And, I think that discomfort is good. It's like frustration. When you have some frustration or some discomfort, it's going to push you to change things, because you don't want to stay, of course, in this situation where it's exactly what you said. I had this feeling at what moment that I was not aligned anymore. And I was like, okay, there is something I need to change. And it was much more easier to take the decision.
I'd like to spend some time talking about this idea and passion you have around a safe equality space for women to work at. So since you follow this rather closely, do you think in France, for example, we are doing a good job creating a conducive space for women? Or do you think we have a lot to do that we are overlooking?
Well, that's a very good question, and as you know, I'm really close to this subject. I think that we are doing things. It would not be fair to say that we are not trying to move the lines, but I think that we need to do, of course, a lot more, because if you see that in the tech industry, in the finance industry, in politics, the only first woman prime minister we had was Edith Cresson in 1993. I was 4 years old at the time, so obviously I saw that in history books, but I don't remember. So obviously in all, the areas, if you look at it, in all the areas of power, politics, science, also media, in the way that all the main group of press in France are held by men. In the tech industry, which is, of course, the area of today and of tomorrow, we have too few women. So this is a problem, and there is a lot more to do, because we cannot build the world of tomorrow with so small amount of women represented in the areas of power, and of decision. So once we have said that, I think there is 3 layers we need to look at very carefully. There is the layer, of course, of the public decision, the laws that are, I mean, there are things that are being done, always not enough fast, but that there are laws that have been proclaimed and decided the last few months. So things are evolving, but it's not enough. So after the public institution, there is the enterprise. You know, like corporation. I really believe that they have the power sometimes to do things at their own level before the law. I'm going to give you a very concrete example. Some companies in the tech industry have signed 2 years ago what they call the Parental Act, in order so that the second parent can have some time also to take care of the child when there is a child in the family. And this was before the law of the paternity leave that was raised from 2 weeks to 4 weeks last summer. So my point is that companies don't have to wait for the law to change things. They can change things at their own level. And I think they have a strong responsibility and that they have a strong impact on that. And then the third thing, the third layer is the individual impact, of course, that everyone, entrepreneur, people working in corporation, whatever the level, manager or not manager, can have in the way of changing mindsets and changing, of course, attitudes, you know. So I think there is still a lot to do on these 3 layers. Yeah.
The second question I'm going to ask you around that is going to be a little more edgy. What is, in your opinion, the best way to proceed when you are, let's say, a mid-sized entrepreneur? You need to hire 100 people, a mid-sized entrepreneur. What's the best way to proceed in a way that men and women are both given equal rights? Like if you were just looking at what you said earlier about you were not proposed the same salary that the male colleague was proposed, maybe he negotiated it, maybe he didn't. But how would you ensure that the structure benefits men and women equally?
Yeah, that's a really good question. Honestly, I'm gonna give you an honest answer. I think we need to be extremely pragmatic on that because the studies show that both men and women have some bias. How do you say bias?
Bias, yeah.
Both men and women have some bias. So if I'm gonna try to hire someone, I may, even if I'm aware of it, I may have myself, Laura, some bias negatively toward a woman, thinking that she will be maybe less competent for the job than toward a man, because we inherit years, decades of bias. So this is the fact. We need to assume it. We need to know it. And of course, we need to train people who are the recruiters to know how to change this mindset. But it's not enough. And when I say we need to be pragmatic, is that the only way I think is to put KPIs, to put key performance indicators on recruitment, which would mean like you have maybe 10 positions to fill. You have to have at least, I don't know, in the 10 position, you're going to have equal number of resume, of CV from men and for women, or even a bit more. You know, you need to measure at every step of the recruitment process. Because if in the end you have in your shortlist 5 guys and 1 woman, of course you're gonna hire a guy. Like, you know. So I think we need to put tools to measure that.
Do you feel that step there is discriminatory in that you would qualify more because you're a woman and then we speak about the performance? Or do you think it's sufficient when we say that we want to have equal number of CVs accepted, because you can't control this? People will apply when there's a job. And I noticed this, that there were more women in my class than there were men in my class. So there are women. It's not like they're not there.
Yeah,
they're there, right? So where do you think you would draw the line on if you received 5 CVs from men and 2 from women? This is where you're at right now. You've not yet made a decision. What would you do? Go out and ask for more female CVs, or how would you handle this?
Yeah, actually, I think that we need to look also of how are being written the job description, because sometimes depending on the industry we don't realize it, but the way we communicate is not woman friendly environment, depending of course in the I've seen that in the tech industry, for instance. So it can begin by this way. Also, by when the company is communicating, put the attention of having some people talking on the name of company that are both men and women, so that women can refer, that they not only see the male CEO talking and thinking, okay, maybe this is a boys club or a guy company. So I think we when I'm saying that, I think we don't have as well to fall in the extreme and to say, okay, I absolutely need to have 5 resume of men, 5 resume of women. We cannot do that. I mean, of course, it's not always black and white, but we need to pay attention in every step of the process, beginning by the way we are written the job offer.
If I'm so curious about this, Laura, I would probably spend another 30 minutes if we were having a private coffee now. But I'm sure our listeners also are having these questions. So I would invite them to look at Legend Ladies, where she goes into the details of these, like how are the job descriptions in the tech world not attractive for women. This is something I want to spend 30 minutes on, but we don't have the time for that. So I invite people to click on Legend Ladies to listen to that. Laura, I want to wrap up with this kind of financial success, which I said in the beginning part of the intro. You have tasted this. I'm going back to the entrepreneurship and the career part of things. How did it feel? It must have felt great. When did you experience this first, that what you like to do and what you want to do is paying you? When did you feel this? And which hustle was it that paid you first?
I didn't understand the last part of your sentence. That it was being me?
No, which side hustle? Like, I know you'd like to talk about a couple of topics, right? Eating healthy and local, about making a nice, conducive workspace for women. It's about using your oral skills. There's so much to unpack over here. But when did you first see financial success in your non-employment life, like in your own side hustle?
Okay.
Not your paycheck, but your project.
Yeah. I know what you mean. Well, honestly, quite quickly, because I was really surprised that when I began my business, I was thinking, of course, as a former sales director, I was thinking, okay, I'm gonna have to send a lot of LinkedIn message to people to get in touch with, to present my Legend Daily company, to explain my value, to try to close some deals. Obviously, I mean, that's the life of an entrepreneur. And I was thinking I'm going to have to make some cold calling, which I know how to do, but I had this in mind. But actually what happened was crazy, is that I almost didn't have to do any prospection. I swear. And this is crazy because, now I explain it. So I had a good problem. Now I have to scale my company because I have the good problem of having too much project and too much demand that I cannot do everything on my own. So this is great because it means, of course, that my company is going well. And the other challenge now will be to scale that, which is not an easy one. But just to come back from your point about the financial
success.
Yeah, success. I think that when you decide as an entrepreneur to communicate on something that you really believe about, and that you put yourself out there, and that this is my case, that the brand is linked to your personality and to your values and to what you think, it's much more easier, because in everything you're going to communicate about what you think, but at the same time, it's about your brand and what you want to transmit to people, what you want to give out there. So it's linked to the personal brand we were thinking about. So I don't know if that's answering your question, but I saw the financial results quite quickly, because I think that I communicate with alignment in what I thought and what I want to bring to people on the market.
I'm such an operational guy, like you said earlier. You like to get to the action side of things, and sometimes it's important to pause. Again, just like what I said 2 minutes ago, if you allow me to ask you questions on this, I'll probably piece 30 minutes straight, asking you what were your verbs, what were your actions, what do you mean communicate? Was it LinkedIn posts? What was it? But but we should probably have you over for another episode and dig into.
Joshua, can I just interrupt you to give you an example, because this is very interesting. the LinkedIn, for instance, I'm using a lot LinkedIn. And I was thinking at the beginning, I'm going to do, a media communication calendar, thinking on the Monday, Lina, you know what I mean? On the Monday, I'm going to post it on the Wednesday. And I realized that the post that we're having last 2 weeks ago, I hit 220,000 views on a LinkedIn post that I did on the morning I woke up. I had something in mind, a topic about diversity with a picture that I saw, and that was a picture of a board member of maybe 20 white guys of plus 50 years old. And I was like, yeah, my God, where are the women on this table? Where is the diversity? Where is the young people? Where is the, well, and I wanted to write something, and I wrote it about something that I was a bit angry about, that I think that things may change in an urgent way. And I began to write that post. Maybe it took me 30 minutes to write it well and to put the picture. And it's one of the posts that works so much and that brings me after some new contact, some new relationship. But my point here is that the thing that is working the most on that is when you bring out there a conviction, a personal conviction. Because on LinkedIn, and I think it's the same on other social media, people don't want you to talk about the company features, the product features. Of course, it's important, but the thing that will stay in people is what you can bring to what you can make them feel. Actually, if you can touch the heart of people, you won the game. Because like you create emotion, and we know that emotion is much more impactful than what you have in your rational brain, right?
This is so huge, Laura. I think I've spent a total of 1 hour with you on a face-to-face basis, not more than that. But your ideas and your passion, it just comes through so clearly. Even when you're one among 3 people on the table, it is so apparent. This is why I thought of you and I reached out to you.
Thank
because
you.
it's ikigai. What was
Yeah,
this?
yeah.
Yeah, ikigai,
Yeah.
where you see what you're good at, what you like to do, and see if that can drive you some kind of financial, some revenue. That's
And
amazing.
Laura, I can tell you, we have that communication calendar.
You know what I'm talking about then.
Yeah, yeah. Hey, Laura, thank you so much for taking your time to discuss these things with us. Very high quality insights given free to our listeners. We are so grateful to have you on our show.
Thank you so much, Lina. Thank you, Josh.